Hello, greetings to Mrs. Sisco and all of her students. My name is Jenny and I live in Northern Ireland, and I have from you some questions that you have about Northern Ireland, about what it's like to live here, about certainly our situation with COVID-19 here in Northern Ireland, and I'm going to try and answer some of those questions for you now. First, before I start, I'd like to just send you greetings from Northern Ireland. It's a sunny, beautiful day here in Belfast today. Unfortunately, I can't really go outside to enjoy it much, but I send you greetings from here, the other side of the ocean, and I hope that you're all well and safe, and thank you for your questions. Some really interesting, very, very well-researched and thoughtful questions. So I thought I would just start by answering some of your questions about Northern Ireland generally, about the language and the geography here, and then I'll talk a wee bit about what our COVID-19 experience here in Northern Ireland is like. So Northern Ireland is a small country, part of the larger United Kingdom. So along with Scotland, England, and Wales, Northern Ireland makes up the country of the United Kingdom, which has just under 68 million people total. Northern Ireland itself is a country of about 1.8 million, so it's not terribly big. It's not very geographically big, and certainly in comparison with the United States, it's a very small place with quite a small population. You have asked about languages, and most everyone in Northern Ireland speaks English as their first language. People do speak Gaelic in Northern Ireland. Language is quite a political topic here, and depending on which side of the political divide that you find yourself on, whether you would consider yourself a unionist or a nationalist, would determine really largely what language you speak. So our school systems here are segregated. So Protestants and Catholics educate their children in two different education systems. And if you are attending a Catholic school, you will be learning Gaelic as part of your education from the time you enter school until the time you graduate. If you attend Protestant school or state school, what we would call normal public school in the US, then all of your instruction will be in English, and you won't be taught Gaelic in school at all. So there would be parts of Northern Ireland which are heavily Catholic, or yes, heavily Catholic, where you might see street signs and other public signage in Gaelic as well as English. That would be quite a political statement to identify themselves as being nationalist in their politics. And if you travel to the south of Ireland, you will see all signs in English and Gaelic most places that you go. So road signs, everything, all the sort of public signage would probably be in both English and Gaelic. In the south of Ireland, which is a separate country from Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland is its own separate country. But in the Republic of Ireland, in public school, you would learn Gaelic. You would be taught most of your instruction in English. However, you would learn Gaelic from the time you start school until the time you graduate. And in order to receive a public job, a government job in the south of Ireland, if you wanted to be a school teacher or work in any sort of government position, you'd need to be able to speak Gaelic. You need to be able to pass an Irish language test to hold a government position in the south of Ireland. That is not true in the north of Ireland and in Northern Ireland. So apart from English, Gaelic would probably be the next most spoken language in Northern Ireland, but we have an increasingly large immigrant population. So people are coming from all different parts of the European Union in particular, but certainly all different parts of the world. In the last 10 years or so in Northern Ireland, we've had a real influx of immigrants, which depending on your perspective, some people see that as a really positive thing. Some people do not see that as a positive thing, see that as a real threat. So you will hear around Belfast, where I live, any number of different languages being spoken out in the public square, and but I would say probably the two most commonly spoken here would be English and Gaelic. There are also different variations of English. So the part of Northern Ireland that my husband comes from, they speak a dialect of English called Ulster Scots. It's a bit of a combination between Scottish, Gaelic, and English, and very, very difficult to understand unless you grew up speaking it. Pronunciation and just vocabulary are very, very different from standard English. And in places like Ballymena, where my husband grew up, Ulster Scots would be considered very nearly have the status of a language of its own. There would be a newspaper printed in Ulster Scots, which you would not probably be able to make very much sense of unless you are able to fluently speak Ulster Scots. So there are dialects of English which are spoken in Northern Ireland as well. You're asking about geography and the fact that Ulster, very good, that's the province that we live in, it appears to be mostly rural with small towns. We do have a few big modern cities, and some of the smaller towns are cities like Hudsonville or Jenison that you would have in the suburbs of Grand Rapids as well. But Belfast is the largest city in Northern Ireland. It's the capital city of Northern Ireland. The population of Belfast is about 312,000 people. So comparing that to the population of the city of Grand Rapids, which is around 200,000, maybe slightly larger than Grand Rapids, although I think that's just Grand Rapids like city proper. Where your metro area would probably have a much greater population than Belfast has. So we have big cities. Belfast is a modern city. It's a lovely place to visit. So when travel restrictions are over, maybe some of you will find yourself in Belfast someday. The weather in Northern Ireland is generally mild throughout most of the year. The temperatures average in Fahrenheit probably from around 40 to 70. That would be the average temperature range. Occasionally dropping below 40, occasionally every once in a while, maybe once a year, we would get some snow. It doesn't usually stay on the ground. And occasionally, again, maybe once or twice a year, we would pop up into the 80s for temperature. Very similar to Michigan. July and August tend to be our warmest months, but it is always wet in Northern Ireland. We've had lots of sunny days in a row, which is very, very unusual for the weather here. Ireland, if you've seen pictures of it, you'll know that it's very green, and it is green because it rains all the time here. So it would be very unusual for us to go for a week without seeing some rain at least. Commonly though, it would rain every few days, and it rains. A rainy day here literally means that it rains all day long. You're asking, someone has asked, do we live near the Northern Lights? Not really. Now it's, I would say, similar to Michigan. We're only just a few degrees higher than Michigan in terms of our latitude on the globe. So like in Michigan, from time to time, if the conditions are exactly right, we may catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights, but it is not the norm. So you'd need to go quite a bit further north. People from here often travel to places like Iceland to try and catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights. So from time to time we might see them here, but it's not the norm. You've asked a question about topography, and Northern Ireland is not very mountainous. There is a small mountain range in the west of Northern Ireland, the Mourne Mountains. But when I say mountains, think very much like tall rolling hills. They're not mountains like the Rocky Mountains. They're high hills, essentially. There's quite a lot of agriculture still here in Northern Ireland. Historically there would have been, but still to this day there is. And the topography is really quite rolling, but mainly sort of gentle rolling. And like I said, there is one area, the Mourne Mountains, where you would get quite hilly hills, high hills. I think they're technically known as the Mourne Mountains, but please don't think of it as like the Rocky Mountains at all. They aren't like that. Distance and time to travel from one side of Northern Ireland to the other. It's about 170 miles from top to bottom at its longest point, and that would be from east to west, 170 miles. From top to bottom, about 301 miles at its longest point. So from any given point in Northern Ireland, you would drive approximately 2 hours, maybe slightly more, slightly less, to get to the other side. So it's not a terribly big place at all. I have a question here about the landscape that Northern Ireland appears in pictures. There's a lot of nature, and it is a very picturesque place. So when you think of Ireland, I'm sure you think of green rolling hills, little patchwork fields with sheep dotting them, and that is very much what it is like here. It is a lovely picturesque place, especially on a sunny day. As I said before, most days are rainy, but if you can catch the sunshine in Northern Ireland, it is a beautiful place. There's a lovely coastline, and there's a drive along the northern coast of Northern Ireland, and it's beautiful scenery, some sort of rocky cliffs down to the ocean, and I suppose living, no matter where you are in Northern Ireland, you're not very far away from the ocean, so living near the ocean is something that I really like and enjoy about being in Northern Ireland. There's a question here about the Giant's Causeway. Is it as cool as it looks in pictures? And it is. It's a lovely place to visit. It's a really geographically very interesting spot. Unlike most any other place I've ever seen in the world, there are only a few places on Earth that have the kinds of geographic rock formations that we have in the Giant's Causeway. And so it's probably our #1 tourist attraction in Northern Ireland is the Giant's Causeway, and it is as amazing as it looks in pictures. It's absolutely beautiful, stunning, and worth a visit over to this side of the pond if you ever have the chance. The final question here in the geography section is about the Giant's Ring, and I'll be honest with you, it's only about 5 miles away from my house, but I have never visited the Giant's Ring, so I had to look it up online to find out a bit about it. It's near a place called Shaw's Bridge, which is a place where you can cross the Lagan River. The Lagan River runs through Northern Ireland, through the capital city of Belfast, and Shaw's Bridge is a historical crossing of the Lagan River, a place where they've been crossing the Lagan River since many eons ago. The Giant's Ring is apparently a Neolithic sort of earthen mound, circular mound, and it's believed that it was a meeting place, possibly a place where they performed ceremonies or memorials to dead ancestors, although nobody knows for sure. So it's some place that I have not personally been to in Northern Ireland, but it is an interesting spot, and again, maybe if you make it over to this part of the world, you could visit there sometime. So you also had some questions about COVID-19, which I'll answer now, and then I'll maybe do another video to tackle some of your other questions. So someone was interested in knowing how many cases of COVID-19 we have right now in Northern Ireland, and are they near where we live, Belfast, where we are. And the answer to that is across the UK as of today, which is the 6th of April, Monday the 6th of April. As of today, there were about 47,800 cases UK-wide, and there are about 4,930-ish deaths UK-wide. In Northern Ireland, the numbers are smaller, about 1,090 or so cases reported, and about 158 deaths reported in Northern Ireland as of today. I will say that the number of cases reported is probably not accurate because we are not testing. We're not widely testing people for the virus. So really the only people who are getting tested for the virus are people who have reported to hospital with symptoms. So I think the number of cases reported is really probably pretty significantly lower than what it actually is in reality. And are they near us in Belfast? Yes, they are. Someone has asked, do I know anyone who personally has had COVID-19? And I do. My husband's boss went on a skiing trip about 3 weeks ago to Austria. He stayed in a hotel with a group of friends, and all of them came back to Northern Ireland with the virus. So within a week or so of arriving back in Northern Ireland, he and all his friends became symptomatic. So I think now 5 people who have had an official diagnosis of COVID-19. Thankfully, all of those 5 people who I know are either fully recovered or recovering very well. So we're very, very thankful for that. But it certainly it's in our community, and we definitely know people who have had it themselves or who currently have it themselves, and we certainly know even more people who know others who have had the virus. How has coronavirus impacted our community? So I think probably very similarly to the way that it's impacted you in Michigan. We've been asked to stay in our homes, to work from home if possible. Schools have been called off, although I'll talk a wee bit more about that in just a minute. Not completely called off. We are permitted to leave our house for exercise once a day, for groceries, and for medical treatment. So if you need to get a prescription, or if you have an appointment at the hospital or to see the doctor, you're allowed to leave the house for those things. You're allowed to leave the house for work if you are considered an essential worker, if you're considered a key worker. And in Northern Ireland, the police are actually out stopping cars, asking where you're going, what the purpose of your travel is, and if you're not able to give them a satisfactory answer, then you're sent back home. You're asked to return to your home. So it is being quite strictly enforced here. The order to stay at home it's not being taken very lightly. It's being taken quite seriously. My husband works for a pharmacy company, and pharmacy is considered an essential service, but he has a letter that he received from the government which gives him permission to travel to and from work. So it is being enforced. Are people buying toilet paper? Are they buying things they actually need? So yes, people have been stockpiling toilet paper here in Northern Ireland as well. And yeah, things like hand sanitizer, flour, bread, those are all very hard to find at this point in the shops here. A question was asked about, has COVID-19 affected schools? Are they closed? Do you do work online? It has affected schools. Schools are officially closed. However, in Northern Ireland, if the parents of the children are working in a key worker job, then those children are allowed to go to school still. So some teachers are still working from the school building. Others are working from home. Many are doing lessons online, providing work and lessons and feedback and things online, just as you're doing in Michigan. So because I teach very, very small children, preschoolers, they're not getting any assignments from me, but I am sending in occasional videotapes of me reading stories to them, or suggesting little art projects or activities that they could do at home. So we're staying in touch with our very, very young children in that way. And we are on a lockdown. Our lifestyle has changed fairly significantly, as has yours. We are not allowed to visit family, visit friends, even those who are sick. We are allowed to maybe help someone with shopping if they need it. So my husband and I are able to do shopping for a few of our neighbors up and down the street who cannot leave their homes, but very much like you, we're mainly staying inside. Has the quarantine affected the economy? Absolutely. Many people are no longer able to work at their job. If they can't do their job from home, then many people have been put on what we're calling in the UK furlough. The government has agreed to pay 80% of a person's wages if they're put on furlough, but they have to meet certain criteria in order to be considered eligible for furlough. So the effects on the economy are huge, and I think we'll probably be seeing them, as you will in the States as well, for quite a long time to come. I don't think anybody knows at this point what the long-term impact will be. And I think we're all in the same boat sort of around the world in terms of that. We will have to wait and see how long the lockdown situation lasts for, and what the long-term impacts on the economy will actually be. Nobody really knows for sure at this point. How are Ireland and Northern Ireland responding differently to the coronavirus? There has been a very different response from the Republic of Ireland and the UK. The Northern Ireland has obviously responded in the same as the UK. We've taken all of our advice from our government officials in London and Westminster. The south of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, have developed their own measures for responding to coronavirus. I would say that the south of Ireland has responded much more quickly in terms of shutting down schools, shutting down businesses, requiring people to stay at home, limiting public gatherings and that sort of thing. The UK response has been a bit slower than the Irish response in that regard. I suppose, yeah, just a different approach from two different countries, and just because we're on the same island, we've obviously taken two different sort of tracks on how to handle and manage public life. So I don't know which is better, and I suppose only time will tell. The last question asks, can people from Northern Ireland travel to the United Kingdom with the situation while the situation with COVID-19 is happening? And we can, technically. There haven't been restrictions placed on traveling between parts of the United Kingdom. However, because Northern Ireland is separated from the rest of the United Kingdom by water, the only way to go would be to either fly or take a ferry. Most of the domestic flights have been cancelled. Most of the airlines in Europe really have grounded their fleet of planes, unless it's to bring people home who've been sort of stranded overseas in other parts of the world. But apart from that, there really aren't flights flying. So it would be very difficult to find a flight. It would be, if you could, you would be allowed to travel, I think, still at this point to the rest of the United Kingdom. As far as ferries go, I think they are still operating because there need to be supply trucks for grocery supplies and medical supplies, etc., and the way that usually happens is across the Irish Sea by ferry, by boat. So I know the ferries are still operating. I don't know if they're operating commercially or if they're only operating for delivery trucks. I don't know the answer to that, but I think most of us know and would be complying with the advice to just stay home at this point in time. So those are the answers to some of your questions about Northern Ireland and COVID-19. I have loads more questions here, so I'll do another video at some other point in time to try and address some of your other questions about what it's like to live abroad, about government and politics, education, and daily life. But it's been really lovely to chat with you, and I hope it's been informative, and I wish you all the best, and you are all in my prayers, everyone in the States, which is home for me are always in my prayers, especially at this difficult time. I know it's challenging to continue on with your studies, and so well done all of you for continuing to learn new things and be curious and ask questions even at this challenging time. So I wish you all the best, with very best wishes from Belfast, and I'll see you again soon with answers to some more of your questions. Take care. Bye-bye.